LinkedIn News.
This last exercise was write an essay envisioning a life 5 years into the future where you were living exactly the way you wanted to live. And so I did. Then I put it away. And then about, I would say, a year later, I was looking for an address. And then I came upon the essay and was astounded because several of these big, audacious hopes and dreams had already begun to manifest.
That's Debbie Millman, renowned designer, author, educator, and host of the pioneering podcast Design Matters. I'm Leah Smart, and this is Everyday Better. In the second episode of our January series on the Year for Irrational Hope, get ready to hear the incredible power of the 10-year plan. It's a visioning exercise that's rooted in suspending your limiting beliefs to dream bigger than you have ever dared to. And Debbie is going to tell us exactly why it works. Before we get started, first of all, I am so sorry for my pregnancy congestion. Stick with me. And speaking of pregnancy, a quick reminder of the announcement that we shared in last week's episode. Starting in mid-February, our show is going to take a pause while I go out on mat leave and focus my attention on my growing family. To be clear, though, this is absolutely not the end of my work by any means. It's going to continue, and you can still find me on LinkedIn, hosting leadership coaching sessions and interviews. But I'll also be on Instagram and Substack, sharing a lot more of what I'm thinking about and some of the topics that have been deeply personal and important, I think, to myself and to many of you on your own self-development journeys. The links are going to be in the show notes, so check those out and follow up for more updates. But until then, keep tuning in through February for a few more of our best episodes yet. Lastly, before we jump in with the legendary Debbie Millman, I've got a big favor to ask you that is a little bit time-bound. If you've listened to this show and you've never left a review on Apple or Spotify or sent us a comment on Spotify, please do it before we go on hiatus. Myself and my whole team get so much joy out of seeing how we've impacted you and what parts of the show that you've loved and episodes and conversations that have really resonated. And if you're new here, be sure to follow Everyday Better on the platform that you're on right now so that you know as soon as we come off of hiatus. Thanks again, and we'll be right back with Debbie Millman. Hey everyone, from LinkedIn News, this is Everyday Better, a show about the tools you need to create positive change in your mindset, your work, and every other area of your life. I'm Leah Smart, LinkedIn's senior editor and a certified professional coach, and I help people become better versions of themselves one day at a time. And every week, I sit down with a trusted voice, so together we can explore how to take small steps toward big changes, the kind we plan for, strive toward, or never saw coming. Last week, I talked about the theme of our January series, which is this idea of irrational hope. It's the belief that things can get better despite any and all evidence that might point to the contrary. And I want to reiterate that you have the power to make change for yourself. You have the ability to start changing your own corner of the world. And I think that's what's really important in this series, is that irrational hope can start with you, and also that it is contagious. So when you start, other people see you, they want more of what you're having, and that's how you shift relationships, community, and your corner of the world. So today, in the second episode of our Irrational Hope series, I sat down with Debbie Millman. She is a legend in the design space, and she's the perfect person to talk to about irrational hope, and I'm going to tell you why in a sec. First, here's what Debbie has worked on. Debbie has consulted for the world's biggest brands like Burger King, Haagen-Dazs, and Star Wars. She's published 8 books, and she's been teaching branding for 20 years at the School of Visual Arts. She also hosts Design Matters, which is one of the first and longest-running podcasts in the world, people. But I actually know Debbie because of an exercise she teaches in her class called the 10-year plan. Now, the 10-year plan is a visioning exercise, and before you get all worried about it being woo-woo, I want to talk to you about where it came from and what it actually is. So she got this from her mentor, Milton Glaser. He's the guy who created the I Heart New York logo, which is pretty cool. And in this plan, you envision your life 10 years from today. This isn't about what's like realistic or possible. It's about suspending your beliefs that you have right now about what your life can be and imagining a day far into the future, from the moment that you wake up to the moment that you go to sleep, with as much description, detail, and imagination possible. And I'll tell you guys, about a year and a half ago, I sat alone and quietly with my own journal to do this, and I ended up writing 8 full pages by hand. And when I read it back recently, I saw that things had already started getting into motion. For example, in my 10-year plan, I imagined living in a place that felt like a true home in New York City. I envisioned my family, my kids, 2 kids, eating dinner outside in the summer. Now, if you've ever lived here, you know that space and a yard are not just hard, but generally impossible to find in New York City. But somehow, my husband and I stumbled on an apartment, the perfect place for our family, that I swear it looked like the visual I had of my kids, of my family eating outside. Now, I believe the power of this exercise is about suspending the beliefs you have that are limiting you. The beliefs you have about yourself, about the world, about who you can be, about who you are today. Why? Because our limiting beliefs or our desire to be quote unquote realistic often keep us from getting where we want to go. If I hadn't have done this exercise and someone had just said, hey, where would you like to live? I probably would have come up with something like this, but I immediately would have shut down the idea and gone, but that's impossible to find. And so this is the central idea. This concept of a little bit of irrationality, right? A little bit of magic that we allow to enter our lives. And I think the 10-year plan does this incredibly well. So Debbie and I are going to get into how you write your own 10-year plan. And then how you show up genuinely while you create room for your own change and your own growth over time. Here's Debbie.
In 2005, I was in my mid-40s, and I took a class with Milton Glaser. This summer intensive was about rebooting, re-energizing your career, your professional career. And it was for mid-level designers.
Okay.
And so there were a lot of other people like me that were looking to be recharged.
Yeah. What am I doing?
What am I doing? How am I
Yeah.
doing it?
Yeah.
What is this? What is the value of what I'm doing, et cetera, et cetera. And so this last exercise was writing a 5-year plan. And Milton said that in his, at that point, 40 or 50-year career teaching, that this was one of the most profound exercises that he had done with his students, and that not a week went by where someone reached out to him that he had previously taught that said, this exercise transformed my life. So he asked us to be very serious about it. And so I wrote, it was a smallish journal, so it might seem excessive, but because they were small pages, I wrote a 12-page essay. I then also made a list of all the things that I was doing in 2010. I had 20 things.
Love.
And I put my heart and soul into it. And basically he asked us to write an essay from the moment we woke up. So I opened my eyes. It's whatever date it is, 5 years in the future. And as if you were living the entire day and then going to sleep. So what exactly are you doing? Almost minute by minute.
Right.
And I did.
And to be clear, I mean, you're a designer, so this was probably obvious, but for people who are listening, it's like not just like I wake up and it's 6 a.m. and I go to the kitchen. It's like bringing to life your experience, right?
Yeah.
It's like colors, feelings.
Well,
any of that.
he encouraged us to start it from bed.
Yep. Yeah. Love it.
So what kind of bed are you in? What kind of room is it? Who are you with?
Yep.
Do you have a significant other, a spouse, children, pets? Are they all with you? Are you by yourself? Are you in Bali? Are you in New York? Are you in California? Are you in Africa?
Yeah.
Wherever you are, what kind of sheets are you in? Where are there windows? What are you looking at? Et cetera,
So
et
this
cetera,
is
et cetera.
detailed.
It's super detailed. And he also said that, if you want to do a lot of different things, just have a lot of meetings. And so that's what I did. I had a meeting with a publisher and a museum that I was doing an exhibit for, and on and on and on. And I really put a lot of faith in what was possible, which was unusual for me. But I really wanted to do this and do it right. And so I did. And then I put it away. And then about, I would say, a year later, I was looking for an address. And then I came upon the essay and was astounded because several of these big, audacious hopes and dreams had already begun to manifest.
Within a year.
Within a year.
And you had not sat down and a couple months later been like, okay, what needs to be happening?
No.
You were just, you closed it and walked away.
Yep. I had a book deal. I was teaching at the School of Visual Arts. Everything that I really wanted to happen happened. I even had opportunities to do things that I no longer wanted to happen. So it was astounding to me. Now, my 10-year plan actually took about, in its entirety, probably 13 to 15 years to fully manifest. I mean, every single thing happened. All 20.
What do you attribute it to? Because I've heard you also say you had students, of course, over the years. You weren't shocked when I told you something has already happened. It's been a year and a half since I've written mine.
Well, I think there is something about declaring hope and intention that helps bring it forth in your subconscious. I'm not really a woo-woo person. So the fact that I even believe in this is somewhat of a departure for me. I'm much more a science nerd. So the fact that this feels sort of magical flies in the face of a lot of my beliefs.
You're a what's probable, not what's possible person. Okay, got it. Okay.
And so I have to suspend my sort of normal ways of thinking about reality when I think about this a little bit. But I do think it has something to do with planting the seed in yourself. And then subconsciously, unconsciously, sort of willing it to happen. That's the only thing that I can suggest making it make sense in any real way.
Yeah.
What I also can say for myself is that in 2017, because at that point it had been 12 years, during 2017, a number of people had said, well, have you written another one? Because 2017 was when I shared this exercise on Tim Ferriss's show. And at that time, it went a little bit viral. And I thought, maybe this is a good time to do it. I had a really rough year in 2017. Went through a bit of a depression. And so I took this as an opportunity to, again, try and manifest. And I wrote another one. And in that one, I envisioned true love. And, at that point, I was 57 years old. I've had a lot of loves. But I was looking for my true love, my soulmate, which had not yet happened in the way that I'd hoped and dreamed. And then in October of 2018, I went on my first date with my now wife. And she is the love of my life. I know.
I could cry.
Me
That's
too.
incredible. For me, writing this 10-year plan or writing any of my past visions for myself have been a lot about this idea of suspending my beliefs about what reality is for me in order to create something from very little, instead of creating from the evidence I have in the past or what I've heard societally.
Yeah.
So as a Black woman, going, I want to have a podcast. I want to do this thing. I want to be able to build something. I want to be a writer. I want to be, all of the things that were kind of in my dream are things that easily someone else could look at me and go, oh, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
And so what I love about this is, my story of origin didn't really have anything to do with my 10-year plan. Of course, there was impact, but I was able to suspending your version of your reality.
Yeah.
Because everyone has a different version of their own.
Yeah.
I was able to suspend that and write it. And so I could live outside of this sense of identity that I had over here. So that's it's a very freeing experience.
Yeah. One of the things that I really urge people to keep in mind as they are undertaking this exercise is to not think about process. And that's probably the most important aspect, because people get very caught up in how can I envision this already happening if I don't know how it could happen, if I don't know what steps I need to make it happen, if I don't need to will it into creation.
Right.
And that you have to put aside in order to be able to really fully envision. You can't think about how you're going to do it. You have to envision it happening and let your subconscious take over from there in the time between you write it until the time it manifests. The other thing that I want to say about the timing, I have had students in some of the workshops that I've taught over the years that are in their 70s. And then they come to me and say, I don't know if I'm going to be alive in 10 years.
Right.
Like, then make it for as long as you want to.
Right. Right.
If you want to make it a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan,
Go for it.
go ahead.
Yep.
There's no hard and fast rule that you have to do anything a certain way when it comes to this, as long as you really give yourself the space to envision without obstacles in this one exercise.
I am very interested in identity personally, especially as my life has expanded. I've spent the last 15 years fully focused on myself as a careerist. That's my identity. And becoming a mom forced me to expand that. And so my identity changed, and it has forever changed. And one of the things I find that's really difficult is accepting sometimes that change in identity and trying to figure out, how to get yourself retethered. What is my identity today? So I find myself personally fascinated for other people who are in these transitional moments to help figure out, how do we rewrite our identities, or do we? Like, is that how you've seen it?
I think that is such an incredibly important question. And as someone that has always been somewhat terrified and also resistant to change, I'm not sure I have an adequate answer. I think that my allegiance to the various things that I've done over my life has been both a blessing and a curse, in that I do have an enormous amount of loyalty, stick-to-itiveness, dedication to doing things. If I look back at the major, significant chapters of my life, they all go on for a really long time. I worked at Sterling Brands for 21 years. I'm now working at the School of Visual Arts for 20 years. I lived in the first apartment that I owned for 20-something years. I've done the podcast for 20 years. Those are all good things for the most part, but I tend to stay with things for a little bit longer than I should. And that is something that doesn't matter as much when you're in your 40s, but absolutely matters when you're in your 60s. I am much more aware now of the finiteness of time. My time here on this earth. And so I am contending with a lot of questions about longevity, legacy, choice, and safety and security and meaning and purpose. And I've given up things in the past, but it's always, as I mentioned, a little bit past their expiration date.
Yep. You're a long hauler.
I'm a long hauler. That's a great way of putting it. I have to really contend with what that means and how might that be holding me back. And so carving a new identity has never been easy for me. What I can tell you is what somebody told me quite a long time ago. I was doing a panel discussion, and one of the women that I was interviewing was at the time, or had just stopped being the general manager of Puma, and she had left to start her own retail store. And I said, well, how did you do that? How did you go from that
Make
to that.
right.
And she said that she just had to let go of the trapeze.
Hmm.
And at that point, I had this visual of me not just holding onto the trapeze with my fists, locked fists,
Yep.
but with my elbows and my legs.
Yeah.
And I was sort of all pretzeled and contorted around this trapeze. And then ultimately, I did just leave. What I can tell you is that I've never regretted stopping doing something, ever. So I don't know why I always get so scared about these things. Still working on it.
Maybe you don't notice when you've stopped savoring or when it's time to stop savoring.
Yeah. I have never regretted stopping a relationship. I've never regretted stopping a job, stopping a bad habit, stopping anything that I wanted to stop but was reluctant to do at the time. And so I try to keep that front and center as I'm looking at the future. But it does have a lot to do with being uncertain about the future. And one of the things that I do know about that is that when we're thinking about our futures, we often aren't able to conjure up the things that are going to happen because we don't know that they're going to happen. We don't know about the opportunities that might come our way. We're only thinking about what we're losing. And that's hard.
Yeah.
We'll be right back with Debbie Millman, and we'll get into why Debbie, as a branding expert, recommends giving yourself room to grow into your 10-year plan without worrying about if it fits your idea of what your personal brand or outside perception of who you are should be. And we're back with Debbie Millman.
You know, I know you've talked and liked talking a lot about this idea of personal brand being BS. I'm curious to shift to that conversation because the way that I put all of this together is there is a possibility for irrational hope. And that for me really is what the 10-year plan is in a lot of ways, is like I'm choosing to suspend my belief so that I can find irrational hope, give myself the vision of what that is, put it onto paper, and move forward with the belief. And part of that, I feel like kind of transfers into how I show up in the world, what my reputation is for people who are still thinking about brands, what my brand is. And so I'm wondering if you've ever tied those strings together and how you talk to people about this last piece of how you show up in the world in a genuine human way versus a constructed brand.
Well, I believe that brands are manufactured meaning. We decide how to name things and how to imbue meaning into them. So two lines that are crossed together suddenly become a symbol for an entire religion.
Right.
So if you look back at some of the world's leading, long-lasting brands, Coca-Cola,
Band-Aid,
soap brands, cereal brands, they haven't changed very much. When Coca-Cola tried to change their recipe,
things went south. Yeah.
people don't even like it when logos get changed anymore, let alone a recipe.
Right.
Would you want to be stuck with the same way of behaving and the same mode of existing in the world as a brand?
Of course not. You're different.
You want to evolve. You want to be able to change.
Right.
We all talk about wanting to change. Brands don't change all that often. And when they do, it's an enormous risk. You can own a brand. You can manage a brand. You can market a brand. I think when it comes to being human, we are self-directed. Brands don't self-direct. They are directed by humans. A human can be represented in a certain way, but that public representation is likely quite a bit different from their personal representation. At least I'd like to hope so.
Correct. Right.
I'd like to think that Taylor and the fiance have private moments.
Correct. Yeah.
Right?
That we never will hear about.
I'd like to think that Kim Kardashian has a very private, very soulful relationship with her children.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be privy to that.
Mm-mm.
Whatever her outside perspective is, whatever her outside representation is manufactured. So yes, she could have her Skims brand or the TV show, but the person is different from the persona. The person bleeds, the persona doesn't. The person breathes, the persona is instructed to be frozen as is.
And you're supposed to be as everyone else wants you, to your point about brands are created by other people. It feels like
brands are created by people, but they are bought into when there's general consensus that everybody else believes that too.
And they don't want that to change.
Generally speaking,
Yeah.
Once you've hit on something super successful, I don't know that Nike's going to ever change Just Do It because it's kind of perfect.
It works.
If people want to evolve and grow and change, they shouldn't have to think about how their audience is going to respond. I have enough trouble thinking about my own evolution and change and wanting to do different, better things. I don't want to have to think about how the public is going to respond to that or any audience is going to respond to that.
How do you separate that? I feel like it's maybe it's perhaps more rampant for people who are like Gen Z and have grown up with social media. I'm like, I didn't, but I do feel that like there is obviously pressure to create a brand. It's still an image.
A projection. It's a projection of what you want other people to perceive. As soon as you have a projection that you want other people to believe and perceive as is, it's manufactured. And I don't want to live that way in my real life. Interesting phrase. I think that anybody that has expectations that they have to live up to from others struggles with, do they want to people please? Do they want to disappoint? Do they want to not live up to whatever expectations other people have for them?
Yep.
That's hard enough. But then to have to think about, what is my platform going to think if I do this or don't do that? That's really hard. I want to have my own opinions. I don't want to have to worry that somebody isn't going to like me because I'm pro-choice or because I'm gay or because I'm whatever.
And are you, in your mind, are you going, I believe that, I think sometimes we fall into the idea of constructing or manufacturing a brand because part of us is trying to find a way to be liked by as many people as possible, right? Like,
or to be not disliked or to not disappoint people. I mean, I didn't come out until I was 50 because most of my life I lived through a time where gay people were highly discriminated against. I was president of a publicly traded consultancy that was part of a bigger network. I had very conservative clients. I was worried that I'd be judged because of my own inner homophobia.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to think about that anymore. I didn't talk about my traumatic past for decades because I was afraid I'd be judged. People would think I was damaged. People would think less highly of me.
Yes.
And I'm done with that.
Yeah.
And all of those constructions of self prevent you from actually being yourself.
Right. There was a quote from Audre Lorde that she says, nothing I accept about myself can be used against me to diminish me. And I remember when I first heard that, I was like, oh my God, like, what are the things that I'm not accepting in myself about myself?
Yeah, I've been afraid for too long about being truthful about who I am that I don't want to have to think about how other people are going to approve or not. And I do think that that has something to do with aging and that no more F's to give mentality, which I'm still not quite at, but I aspire to be.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we're on our way. We're on the road. We're on the road.
I am working hard at having less F's to give.
I think I heard Brene Brown say, like, she loved her 40s because you stopped giving an F. And I was like, I love that. I can't wait.
Oh, that didn't happen to me in my 40s.
It comes at some point, apparently. Yeah. I mean, you're already, you're working through it.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you in a period where what I'm hoping to find is this sense of irrational hope. It's essentially the idea that in the face of all obstacles, in the face of evidence to the contrary, you still have this deep belief that something can change.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me, actually, because we were also talking about Brene Brown earlier, we were talking quite candidly about my upbringing and various traumas that I'd experienced. And she asked me what had kept me going and continuing to hope or continuing to try. And I really had to stop and think about it. And what I've determined is that I intrinsically have one notch more hope about my future and the future than I do shame about the past or the current moment. And I do think that that is the source of my resilience, that sense of hope that things can be better, things can be different, things can be overcome. It's ever so slightly, I think, easier when it's just about you.
Yeah.
But when it's about the world, then it feels a little bit more daunting in that it's not just your decisions,
Right.
it's not just your resilience, it's not just your
Your
persistence.
sense of agency, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not how much work you've done in therapy or how many times a week you go and work out.
Right.
It's about how the whole world collectively works together. And because we're at such odds with what is right and what is just, that feels a little bit more challenging.
Mm-hmm. I really like the point of like, it's like I see it as like a seesaw or something, or it's like your notch more of hope
Yeah.
is what's like allowing you to, or what has allowed you in the past to find it.
Yeah.
I do agree that there's a difference between ourself, like talking about a 10-year plan. It's like I can write till the cows come home about my 10-year plan for my life, but I don't know, like I've never even thought about this till you were talking. I'm like, has anyone ever written a 10-year plan for the world?
I think we should all do that. I think that we should have a 10-year
Right.
collective global essay writing experience or videotaping experience where everyone that can somehow puts it out into the universe that this is what we'd like the world to be, to become, to manifest. Let's do it.
That was Debbie Millman, designer, author, educator, and host of the pioneering podcast, Design Matters. If you liked this episode, make sure you check my solo episode about the 10-year plan where I walk you through exactly how to do it step by step. We're at the start of the new year, so it's the perfect time to envision what you want, not in just a typical way over the next 12 months, but in a way that helps you expand what you want to see in your own life. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Everyday Better is a production of LinkedIn News. The show is produced by Rachel Wong and Ava Ahmad-Beghi. Asaf Gadron is our sound engineer. Tim Boland mixed our show. We get additional support from Alex Kuznetsova and Mujib Merdad. Sarah Storm is our senior producer. Dave Pond is head of production and creative operations. Maya Pope-Chappelle is director of content and audience development. Courtney Koop is head of original programming. Dan Roth is LinkedIn's editor-in-chief and vice president of content development. And I'm Leah Smart. Thanks for coming with me, and we'll see you next week for the next episode of our January series with spiritual teacher, the amazing Gabby Bernstein.